Hello, I'm Chris Meaney, Director of the Life, Marriage and Family Centre of the Catholic Archdiocese of Sydney. No one wants to suffer. No one wants to see their loved ones suffer. This is an important reason why a significant number of Australians are said to support voluntary euthanasia. But many people who claim to support voluntary euthanasia do not fully understand or appreciate what euthanasia truly encompasses. Euthanasia is the deliberate killing of another person with the motive of ending his or her suffering by doing something, such as giving a lethal injection, or by failing to do something, like withholding life-saving treatment, in order to cause their death. In relation to this issue, there are 6 important points I'd like to make. Firstly, people do not lose their dignity as death approaches. Our dignity, our great value as a human person, does not depend upon the quality of our lives. It is found in our very being. Even if we face death, emaciated or delirious, or unable to feed, speak or toilet ourselves, we always retain our dignity. To die with dignity means to accept the reality of our human condition and to show reverence and gratitude for the gift of life. It involves living through the dying process in a way which reflects our great value as a human being, accepting the love and care of those around us, and waiting for death to come naturally. Secondly, genuine compassion moves us to do all that we can to eliminate suffering, but never to eliminate the sufferer. Compassion literally means to suffer alongside. It is the resolve to genuinely invest yourself in people who are suffering, to offer them the best assistance you can to relieve their physical and emotional anguish, and to help them maintain hope and self-esteem. As Pope John Paul II remarked in the Gospel of Life, true compassion leads to sharing another's pain. It does not kill the person whose suffering we cannot bear. Thirdly, euthanasia is not simply a personal choice, but a public act with public consequences. One person facilitating the death of another is a matter of significant public concern. It can lead to tremendous abuse, exploitation and erosion of care for the most vulnerable people among us. Even when it is freely requested by competent persons, the choice to die by euthanasia gives dangerous public witness to the idea that there is such a thing as a life not worth living. This tempts us to make such judgments about the lives of other sick, disabled or elderly people in similar circumstances. These vulnerable people also become more susceptible to lowered self-esteem and hopelessness, and risk feeling pressured into euthanasia for fear of becoming a burden to others. In this way, the choice to die may come to be seen by vulnerable persons as a duty to die. Even young people who may be suffering psychologically and emotionally may feel affirmed in their mistaken belief that they have a life not worth living. It is interesting to note that in over 1/3 of the deaths occurring under the Oregon assisted suicide law, concern about being a burden on family, friends and caregivers was expressed as a reason for requesting assisted suicide. Next, abuses will undoubtedly occur. Overseas experience confirms the reality of a slippery slope from voluntary euthanasia to involuntary euthanasia. Medically assisted killing in the Netherlands was originally intended to be tightly regulated and strictly limited to adults who are able to make a free and informed request to die. Unfortunately, the practice of euthanasia has now expanded to include many vulnerable people, including the unconscious, disabled babies, children, and people with psychiatric illnesses and dementia. If euthanasia is permitted for suffering people who request it, it will eventually be extended to suffering people who are unable to make a free and informed request. Government-sanctioned studies in the Netherlands have found that many of the cases of assisted suicide and euthanasia are not reported. A majority of Dutch physicians feel free to suggest euthanasia to their patients. and 1 in 4 physicians admit to collectively ending the lives of 1,000 patients every year without their consent. A 2010 Belgium study similarly reported that 32% of euthanasia deaths in the Flanders region were conducted without any explicit request. Point 5. Good quality palliative care cannot flourish alongside euthanasia. The medical profession's deep commitment not to abandon those who suffer has been a powerful motivation in the development of modern medicine. But allowing medical killing discourages alternative approaches to suffering, such as the provision of good palliative care and pain management. This is especially likely in a rapidly ageing society with escalating healthcare costs, where there is increasing pressure to consider the economic impact of patient care. Once doctors are permitted to intentionally kill their patients, however well-meaningly, doctors become deliverers of death as well as guardians of life. Such doctors can no longer promise to always protect and promote the life and health of their patients. A very worrying sign reported in the New England Journal of Medicine revealed that 60% of doctors in the Netherlands do not even report their cases of assisted suicide and euthanasia. Finally, there is a real difference, both ethically and legally, between intending pain relief and intending death. This distinction is important for both doctors and patients. Doctors will often foresee that giving increasing doses of painkillers to comfort a patient may also have the side effect of shortening that patient's life. But where the intention is to relieve suffering and not to hasten death, these doctors are not performing euthanasia. They are providing good palliative care. Under current law in Australia and consistent with church teaching, treatments which have become or are likely to be futile or overly burdensome may be ethically and lawfully withheld or withdrawn at a patient's request, even where it is foreseen that death may possibly come sooner as a result of this choice. For a patient to forego such treatments is not the equivalent of euthanasia or suicide, but an acceptance of one's human condition in the face of death. This is not a choice for death, but a choice about how to live while dying. It is not a refusal of life, but a refusal of overly burdensome or futile treatment. In summary, human life and death are in God's hands. We do not have absolute dominion over the gift of life. The time and circumstances of death are not ours to choose, for ourselves or for others. Euthanasia is never an acceptable response to human suffering. As Pope Benedict XVI reminded us, euthanasia is a false solution to the drama of suffering, a solution unworthy of man.